Hello, everyone. Welcome again to everyone in and interviews that we've been doing. And we have performances that are lined up for this Saturday. But we have a discussion panel this morning, which is going to be quite interesting because it's on expressive arts. And we have represented from a number of different expressive arts opportunities that are here within the greater Milwaukee area. But again, because we're virtually, make sure you look at things that might be available in your area because it is everywhere. So who we have with us today, I'm going to start by a definite non-alphabetical order. So we have Katie Cummings from Pink Umbrella Theater Company. We have Megan from Ex Fabula. Rosemary Pearson is joining us with Donna, Lexa Art Centers, and Alyson, Chavez. If you've seen any of our videos, if you have seen any interviews, you may have seen Alyson already. Or watch later. I'm not sure when I'm going to have this run. So. All right, so we're going to talk about expressive arts and really what it means. I keep talking about enhancing the quality of lives for people living with disabilities, but expressive arts certainly enriches those lives. And if we're going to really come together as a whole, that's going to be needed. So, all right. Well, first of all, let's each one of you just do a little introduction about what your organization is. Katie?
Sure. So Pink Umbrella Theater Company was founded in September of 2018. We just turned 2, and we are a theater company providing a platform for disabled actors and artists to share their talents and stories.
Megan?
Yeah, I'm with Ex Fabula. Our mission is connecting Milwaukee through real stories. So we hold story slams, workshops where any community member can tell a story. So of course, along with any community member, that would include people with disabilities. And we've done a couple special projects to help eliminate some of the barriers that folks with disabilities face.
Awesome. So then Rosemary?
Donna Lexa Art Centers is 35 years old and was founded by Donna Lexa, an art therapist. And we serve our community in Milwaukee, Waukesha areas out of 2 studios. And then we also go out to about a dozen different outreach centers. We focus on doing art for many different reasons for those with disabilities. We do adaptive art, delivery of art directives, as well as using adaptive tools. I know Jory's been wanting to get his hands on our paint catapults.
I'm missing out on that.
I haven't do that yet. Most of our students come to Donna Lexa because they either want to improve their art skills. They already identify themselves as an artist and have a voice that they want to share, and we help them to build a body of work and show that work to the world, and also just for the therapeutic benefit. So it is both life enrichment as well as just a therapeutic benefit.
Very cool. Alyson?
Yes, I'm Alyson Chavez. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Milwaukee Ballet. You'll hear a lot throughout the conference, I think, about our Tour de Force program, which is a program for kids with disabilities where we put kids, physical therapists, and dancers in a studio together and create a ballet class experience for these kids and families. But we also, maybe something I could talk more about today, we also do sensory-friendly performances for people with autism and other sensory processing disorders. And we do collaborative events and activities and projects, one of which we did with Donna Lexa last year, and it was awesome. We also will take our workshops out to different centers like curative care, or we've done programs with Goodwill. So we can adapt any of our workshops to programs and community centers. And really our goal is to just, at least through the community engagement programs, is to just bring the joy and beauty and fun of ballet to life for whoever our audience is, whether they're brand new to ballet or they're a longtime ballet domain who just wants to dig even deeper.
And Alyson, it's great that you talked about the connection with Donna, Lexa Art Centers, because as we've been developing this whole crazy concept for this event, one of the things that came out to me was there are so many organizations doing so many wonderful things, yet I was literally at a table full of people, one person on one side of the room talking about what they're doing. I'm seeing somebody on the other side of the room, another organization, didn't even know what the first one did. So that's part of what we have in the beauty of creating everyone in to bring all these together so that everyone knows. So everyone's in. Hey, it's a catchy phrase. We should, think about using that. So, all right. So many of us have stories of times where we've been seeing the powerful benefits of art at work in our programs. Certainly all of you, I cannot imagine what you get to experience. It's gotta be cool. But can we go around and tell us about one example? And we're gonna go backwards. Alyson?
Oh gosh, I could take 100 examples, but let me share a little bit about something that I saw in our first year of doing our sensory friendly performance of the Nutcracker. This experience gives people a safe way to come see the Nutcracker in a way they haven't been able to before. So we make some adaptations to the performance. We take out some of the the explosions and some of the louder noises. We use recorded music. We keep the house lights at half and the doors open. It would be perfect for the pandemic because everyone's sort of socially distanced in the theater and they can sit wherever they want. It's open seating. They can bring in their tablets and fidgets. And even we've had some therapy dogs in the audience before, which is an amazing thing. So we have people come into a situation where they feel comfortable watching the show. And if they need to get up and move around or make noise or whatever, it's totally fine. We have a quiet zone where people can go relax if they need to. Before the show, we have them come to a meet and greet where they get to meet all the characters so that they can see before they're going to be confronted with it in the audience what the jacks who have clown makeup on look like, what the rats with the big, huge rat heads look like. They can see it up close and know that it's not too scary. What's been amazing about this experience is I had a family tell me that this was the first time their son could ever come see the Nutcracker because they had tried before. A lot of these families had heartbreaking stories about getting asked to leave the theater because their kids, or these are a lot of adults too, they make noises, they respond in louder ways than is acceptable in the theater. And they've been asked to leave the theater, which is, I'm sure, incredibly traumatic, I should say. And so one family told me that their daughter had been in the Nutcracker every year from 9 years old through high school, and her brother had never been able to come see it. He knew the music, he knew the story, and he had never had that experience. He finally got to come. She wasn't in it, but he was singing along. He was just cheering with joy. I mean, everyone should have that experience. And that's the point of, I think, all of the programs that we do, is that if you want to take a ballet class, like every little girl wants to, and we do it for boys, you should be able to. If you want to come to the Nutcracker, like everyone wants to during the holidays, you should be able to. So that story really resonated with me.
Okay, so Rosemary, we're going to go to a different type of expressive arts. So what is an example of what, something you've seen that has made an impact?
It's very hard for me to try and focus on one story. I'm going to talk first just a few minutes generally about the art centers themselves. The experience that I see every day in and out is all of the students coming in, and our students range in age from about 16 well into their 80s. So we have students in a studio session together that are of varying ages, varying abilities, varying needs, and they come together as a community. So greatest joy that I get is from seeing everyone come together and support one another and be friends. I know who had babies. I know who's getting married. I know bowling scores. I know travels that have been made. I know how many languages our students can speak. And when we are missing someone, we're truly missing them. If someone's not in on any given day, I miss that family member. I want to know when they're going to be back and what's up. And that's the way everyone, all of our students come together. They just form a community family together that is supportive. And it's what I love the best about what I get to view and see and be part of. And the other thing that has really touched me this past year is we've had a couple of students that have been on the autism and Asperger's spectrum that had real difficulty adjusting to other group environments. And they've been able to come to the center, and part of our intake process and talking with people who want to join the center is to learn what their needs are and make sure that we're focusing on those every time they're there and focusing on them as they adjust and change and develop over time. And in this case, we have two students in particular that were not able to attend any other type of community service because of their particular needs. And when they came to Donna Lexa, one in particular was nonverbal when she started and was unable to have questions asked of her. And so we began by writing on a whiteboard back and forth, you know, so I'd write good morning with a smiley face and she'd write back, who is now not just fully verbal, but sitting and having conversation at a table with others in the room. And that's the world to me. Just being able to see that progress. I have goosebumps right now thinking of, you know, that kind of difference that a community where one is accepted and can have adaptations made appropriately and just bring them along and scaffold skills. That's the world.
Wow. Okay. Megan, you get to follow up on that one, but
Yeah.
Ex Fabula brings something so completely different. So, you know, what is some benefits that you've seen from Ex Fabula?
Well, yeah, just to build on the things that have been said, not only is it amazing for the individuals with disabilities that are, you know, having these growth opportunities, but honestly, I feel like the community as a whole does have a chance to learn.
Yes.
We've done a couple projects. The first big one was equal access, and we ended up doing, we hold our events in coffee shops, in bars. Well, when we meet in person, we do around the city. And we did accessibility walkthroughs of all of our spaces. And honestly, as we did these walkthroughs, I think, you know, they always say, like, when you put in curb cuts, not only does it benefit people who are using wheelchairs, but it's also great for people who have young children and use strollers. And we definitely saw lots of examples of that. One of the most recent ones, we did a project with the deaf community. And I will say, the deaf community considers itself a language and culture group and not necessarily a group with a disability, although many people in the group identify as both. So in this case, we've done 2 years of work with the deaf community where we had deaf community members being part of a group to teach storytelling workshops and then do a story slam, all completely in ASL. And it has been a huge learning experience. I have all of a sudden thought about visual accessibility in ways that I never did before. But I think one of the coolest things was, you know, we'd been doing this work with the deaf community, and then, you know, COVID hits and we start doing a bunch of programming online. And we're trying to figure out, how can we have someone telling a story and everyone has their audio off, so we're not disturbing them. But then at the end, we want to applause and like recognize them and feel connected, be able to see each other. Well, pretty soon somebody was like, oh, well, we should just clap the way they do in the deaf community. So we switch up the camera, we turn all the cameras, you know, we have everybody through camera on. We just, from Ex Fabula standpoint, we just switched our view so that everybody could see each other and everybody was clapping visually. And I'm like, look at that. You know, here's something that originally, you know, belongs to one group, and we're able to take something that's kind of an accommodation and it ends up helping everyone. So I don't know how many times we've had those little exercises in creativity, but whenever we're asked to provide an accommodation, it's kind of this cool little challenge. And afterward, I'm like, oh, I learned this cool thing. Now can I spread the news to other people? So I don't know. It is some extra work to coordinate, but it's honestly a great practice as a creative person.
Very cool. All right, Katie, you're next. And I don't know if I should let you talk about Dawn Green and the rubber sword.
That certainly was a moment.
I still love that story.
Sure. So we started teaching theater, right? Like that's our core, and that's what we do. So musical theater, improv, Shakespeare, acting, all of those core classes is where we start, and we focus a lot on social growth and emotional recognition and expression in our classrooms as well. And yeah, so Jory and I have a dear friend in common who also takes classes, Dawn. We were in the middle of a Shakespeare scene where there's a fight, and Dawn uses a chair and has some limited mobility, and she right away was like, I can't do this. And we were like, yes, you can. Like, we just need to adapt it. And we did, and it was great. And she was zooming around the room with her imaginary sword, like chasing all the other students around the room. And it was hysterical, right? And her character was some of the comedic relief in that scene. But we too are virtual right now, along with everybody else. And what I'll tell you is the one story that like strikes me right now is one of our students, when we're in person, struggles with stage fright, just terrible. And she has a really hard time. Like, she knows all of her lines, she knows her songs, she knows her solos, but when we're in person, it is terrifying to her. And she does it eventually, but it takes a long time for her to get there, to get to that spotlight center stage. Well, in this platform, I received a text from her mother in all caps one day, and it said she just volunteered to sing a solo. And I like immediately, love and sobbing emojis back to the mom, and the mom was like doing the same, so this environment that we're currently in, to Megan's point, right, like we're finding those access things that help, that I think are going to translate once we're back in person, and hopefully, we will continue to do this online platform. But that was a huge moment for us, where we were like, she feels safe and comfortable in her own environment, and she's raising her hand first in class. Like, you just can't ask for anything more than that. So so that's my favorite story in the past 6 months to share.
It's awesome. So now the next question is, what are some barriers to arts access that you've seen in your work?
Oh my gosh, we did a project. I'm jumping in because since Rosemary's here, Rosemary and I met at a talk at Alverno College about programs, sort of art therapy programs. And we just started brainstorming about what can we do together? What can we do together? To your point, Jory, that people often don't know about each other until they meet, and then some magic happens. But we did a great collaboration with Donna, Lexa, where their students created art inspired by our Ballet Roost Reimagined piece that we did last year. And, every time I work with a new community, I just learn so many things that, like, had I never ventured into that community, I just wouldn't know. And it really opens up my eyes to how much work we have to do. But we had this plan to bring the students to our studio to watch rehearsal, and then later go to the theater where their art would be displayed. I had no idea how hard the just transportation issue for these people is. I mean, it was shocking to me, just trying to figure out how to get two small groups of people, one from West Milwaukee, one from Waukesha, to our space in the 3rd Ward. I thought, easy, I'll call and order a bus and that'll be that. This was the biggest challenge of our program. All the other stuff was fine, figuring out how to do the art, display the art, get the art part was easy. It was just the literal getting them to our space and to the theater, and making sure that it was a safe way for them to get across the city. I mean, this blew my mind, and that's something that I think we have to really figure out. Probably not just in Wisconsin, probably everywhere.
Yep.
And transportation, to echo what Alyson is saying, it truly was difficult for this project, but it's difficult on a daily basis for our students to get to what they want to get to and what they need to get to.
Right.
You know, as I described earlier, how integral the community was in our everyday lives, my everyday life, all of our students' everyday lives. And when they can't get there, you know, a lot of our students see coming to Donna Lexa as their job. I mean, that's what they do. And so when they can't get to their job and they can't get to their community, they're truly isolated and left out. Even if they're at home with others or they're in a group home, they're feeling isolated and left out. We have daily difficulty with transportation, getting the student to their session on time, picking them up on time. We often, we have 2-hour sessions and they sometimes come 15 minutes before session is supposed to end. And they're really missing out.
Yeah.
They're missing out on life because they can't get to it.
If I can add to that, yeah, we definitely have seen a similar theme. And in fact, sometimes in a workshop, we've had a lot of folks talking about transportation. And our thing then was, yes, can we tell those stories? Because what if we could actually change the policies? What if we could, you know, also how can we provide accommodations? So we got to the point where we were saying, okay, normally we would open up a space like half an hour before a workshop. But in this case, we think we need to have someone on site like at least an hour ahead of time. And we need to also communicate like, yeah, feel free to show up anytime here, feel free to leave early. So it's definitely required some flexibility on our part. But, you know, and change doesn't happen quickly, but we're still hoping that by making sure that we're removing barriers wherever possible, that we can amplify these stories and that can lead to the barriers maybe being removed. These are all giant problems, but I don't know, like I said before, it is this exercise in creativity. Just one other kind of related thing. We've had people say, oh, well, surely you can't have a nonverbal person be a storyteller. And in those cases, it's always been a question of, okay, no, how can we do it? So, I mean, we have had a nonverbal person be a storyteller. We had to make sure that individual got to kind of help design the solution. And, you know, along the way, I feel like it is this iterative process, right? Where we address a barrier and then we become part of a larger conversation about how do we remove that barrier. If you don't do the work though on your own organization, especially if you are a more able-bodied person, like you can't just kind of sprinkle in a little bit of inclusion or a little bit of accessibility. It's kind of the deeper you go in, the deeper you realize you have to go.
Katie?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I mean, I would agree with everything that everybody has already said. Transportation is an issue. You know, I've had phone calls too of like, my student or my child is, or I am, is that enough? Or is it okay if I join, right? Like, and then to Megan's point, right? We've had several people say, well, my child is nonverbal. And I say 95% of acting is nonverbal, right? Like, what, come on in, you know, we got that other 5%, we'll figure that out. Like, that's not a problem. So sometimes the barrier is within, right? You know, and to people who have not had access to anything like this for so long. I had a mom tell me, I have a 35-year-old student, and the mom said the last time she was on stage was when she was 18 in school. There's no place for her, you know, to be. So she's been performing for us. So I'm so grateful that she can be here, right? So sometimes it's just about providing the space and getting over whatever internal, you know, whatever internal barriers you have too.
Katie, you mentioned something, and Megan, you as well, that made me think about how wonderful it is to have an opportunity to flip the paradigm. You mentioned that, you know, some are nonverbal and you have 5% of the people who are verbal. Well, how wonderful to be able to flip that paradigm and make the verbal people the minority of the group so that they're learning how to live with others. I mean, that's really part of this whole process, is not just self-expressive, but, you know, just adaptability and learning to live with everyone and communicate in different ways.
Yeah, Rosemary, that's a great point. We, in one of our tour de force classes, the glissade class, this is a class for middle and high school age girls who are all in wheelchairs. And when we were designing this class, I mentioned this in our other talk about tour de force, but Damian Buckman helped us to get a sports wheelchair, an adaptive wheelchair for the class, because he and the parents were like, you know, the teacher should be in a chair as well. Our teacher is one of our professional dancers, and you know, what a great exchange that class has become, where Itzel or whoever the dancer is sitting in the wheelchair and asking the girls, how do you move quickly in this thing? How do you turn fast? Then once she learns how, because the girls are teaching her, then she can apply ballet technique to that. So now she knows how to turn, but now they're learning how to spot. So they're learning from each other. And that like equal playing field is so helpful for the whole class, because, you know, she's not perfect in the chair. And it gives the girls a chance to show off what they know.
If
That
I
is
can
great,
add
yeah.
another example of that.
Please.
Yeah. When we had a nonverbal teller, the way we ended up working out was that he worked with his support person to write out his story. We had this gentleman, Steve helped pick who was going to voice it for him. And we had someone voicing off stage. And one of the things that was amazing was, you know, in storytelling, oftentimes we talk about how you show detail or emotion. And it was so cool to see how Steve would do that. One of the smartest things, when he was talking about different characters, he was telling a story from when he was younger. And he was indicating like the height of each person when talking about them. And that always just paints such a picture of like, oh yeah, how little were you? Who was everyone involved? So just to see the way that he was doing that, they say that a lot of art is about subtraction. So it's fun to see, like, I think anyone could look at that and go, oh, that's actually a really good idea. You don't need to say, instead of saying how old someone was, you can just kind of indicate, you know, oh, my sister Lisa, and put your hand out. And that's a really quick shortcut. So yeah, no, and so I love this, the flipping of the roles. And even I will say, even when it's not flipping, but we do have one person who is one of our storytelling coaches who has a disability, but even within the community, there's so many different kinds of disabilities that just to see all the different nuances where we find things that are very different, but they are also the same. There's so much learning that can happen, and we move away from this idea of disability and not to more of this, how are we all functioning in our own creative ways? And that's what I just love to see.
Yeah, if I could do anything, I would want to take the tolerance that I see and experience at our art centers out into the community streets. I'm sure that there's some of it that's there, but I love how no one makes anything of the fact that this person needs to self-regulate by getting up when she needs to and walking around the table several times to dispel energy, and then can sit down and work again. That person needs to, as Alyson mentioned earlier, needs to shout something out, or you know, needs to count something several times, or whatever it is. And everybody is just functioning as they are able to function. And everyone else is thinking nothing of it. I mean, that's the world, you know.
Isn't it funny? Even in this group, people are wearing glasses. No one ever points that out as an accommodation, but like, these things are all around us. No big deal.
Yeah.
And I try not to squirm in my chair, because my chairs are the kryptonite to me, because there's so much I can do, but boy, chairs can just take me out.
But if that's what you need to do, I also like the idea of giving ourselves permission.
That has been a big learning curve for me. That's a whole nother story. So one thing I wanted to touch on, because as I was listening and then things come out to me, and, you know, back when, you know, Katie, we did the radio program, and so many times I was kind of like doing all these other things, but I was still listening in. We talked about transportation. We talked about getting people to places, and I keep looking at everything we have going on right now. We know what it is, and the changes people have made to go to virtual. So our event is virtual, and some might look and say, well, you only ended up with a virtual event. It's like, you kidding me? We're a virtual event. We're around the world now, baby. This is like awesome. So, but now going forward, when life becomes whatever it's going to become, I think that we're developing some incredible tools, because this is one of the things we are looking to address as we continue with Hope Instilled and Hope Against Pain, because we have these programs here where this group here, you're in Greater Milwaukee or in Waukesha. But what about the person who is, say, in Northern Wisconsin, who would really love to be able to be on a stage and perform? They have no other way of finding out about it, much less participating. What about somebody else who might be in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa, let's see, Radar O'Reilly in Iowa, and he's like, hey, I really like what that Ex Fabula, but that's where we have now built a strength in having to act. Wow, this is just like really comes together. Having to come down, see what it's like being in a wheelchair, see what it's like being not able to, and how can we become able to reach them and really make inclusion a word that I will actually like to hear, because sometimes it's not really inclusion, it's kind of partial. But so what advice would you give to aspiring artists with disabilities? Whoever would like to start, let you just kind of go at this.
I'm going to quote Nike, just do it. There's no reason not to, just do it. Come find us, we'll help if you want it.
Megan?
Yeah, I think finding, just the awareness, what you're talking about. If we can build the awareness that the programs exist, there are a lot more things going on than people know. I'm in the dance world and know so much about ballet companies all over the world, but only in the last 2 years have I learned about, professional companies that have integrated dancers. So some in chairs, some with, just a variety of abilities in a professional company. And I didn't know about that and just learned about it to be able to share that with our students. I think that awareness has to happen. We have to also, just start making this more normal, that we're all together. One of the biggest things I've learned in working in the program is that it's okay to ask questions instead of just being scared and never dealing with it. I've learned so much from the parents that are like, hey, you're not thinking about this in the right way. So we love what you're doing, but can you remember that we've got to have an easier way for that door to open, or whatever it is. If we are all so afraid to even ask questions, I mean, people want to talk about it. They want to tell you ways to help them. They want to have that connection just like we do. We all love talking about the things that we love. So I think that's, we just have to find ways to make sure that people know these things exist, and it's growing every day, whether it's sensory performances or ballet classes for kids all over the country are starting to happen, or theater, art, everything. It's just that we don't know about it and we're not placing as much focus on it. And we really just need to start making this more of a big deal, I think. So I think it's great what you're doing, and what we're all able to, I mean, today I've learned about new things that, like, sometimes I think we all get in our own little worlds where, like, all I know about is what Milwaukee Ballet is doing, but I'm excited to learn that there's a lot more happening.
If I were going to, I frankly, I don't think I would give advice. I think I would just say, please let me know what we can question together. Like, please let me know what are the assumptions that exist, and let's find a way around them. Because frankly, I don't know, as a person who is relatively able-bodied, like it's really not my place to say what things should look like. It's really my job to listen and to react to whatever requests we get. And honestly, that goes not just for people with disabilities. That's just how we operate in general. We operate off of people saying what they need, and then we react to it. So yeah, I guess if maybe I would say, if you've been in a world where you feel like people haven't listened to you in the past, know that we're eager to co-create something new together.
I think the only thing that I would add is that representation matters, right? So the more we are able to work together and see one another on stage or in art galleries or dancing, right? Or telling our stories, the more representation that's out there, and the younger generation is going to grow up to want to do, to create, to build their own theater companies, their own art galleries, their own storytelling places, right? I think as long as we can continue to elevate and amplify the voices of the disabled, artists and actors and designers and creators, the better off this world is going to be now and in the future.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you all for your time, and this has been really amazing to be able to have, and can't wait to have this air on Saturday. This Saturday, everyone in. You can go to everyonein.org for more information. We'll be 9 to 6 p.m. Going to have a whole array of information coming to you. So listen in. You might get a little bit of, might get a little teasers on this before then. Not going to guarantee. All right, again, thank you, ladies, and
You're welcome.
we'll talk soon.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.